Good afternoon. We meet once again. Today we'll be talking about tetanus neonatal. I am your presenter, Mr. Mwanza. So to start with, tetanus is an infection that occurs in neonates. So we may define it as an acute spastic paralytic illness, which is caused by Clostridium tetani. So what happens is that once the neonate comes in contact with the Clostridium tetani, this Clostridium tetani has a mechanism or a property of producing neurotoxins. Okay, so these neurotoxins, when they are produced, they bring about what you call as tetanospasmin. Okay, so it's a result of this tetanospasmin that are produced that to bring about what we call as spastic paralysis. Let us look at now in detail how this comes about, or let us concentrate on the etiology. Okay, so Clostridium tetani is a slender. When you say a slender, which means it's very thin if you look at it on the microscope, and also it has a motile gram-positive anaerobic spore which forms a bacillus. Okay, so once you come in contact with this Clostridium, it can stay for so long, more especially in the soil and in most common also in animal feces. Okay, so this tetani Clostridium has a property of higher life prevalence, which means that even if you boil them, they do not die. The only time that you can kill them is when you do what we call as autoclaving. Okay, and also the other vegetative cells of tetani Clostridium, they can only be killed by antibiotics, also and other healthy standard disinfectants that can be applied. And the tetani Clostridium stands to be the most toxin substance, which is second to botulinum toxin. Let us look at the epidemiology of tetanus. Okay, so Clostridium tetani is found worldwide, but it is more common in infants whose mother has not been vaccinated during pregnancy. And we know that when a woman is pregnant, during antenatal care, we give almost at least 2 injections. So if this woman during antenatal, they did not have a chance, or they did not get injected with tetanus, the child is at higher chance of having tetanus when they are born. Okay. Also, the epidemiology under this, we will look at those mothers who deliver at home, because we know that during the management of the 3rd stage of labor, we do the cord clamping and the delivery of the placenta, and we know that that is a sterile procedure, because from there, that is where also infections can be introduced. So for those mothers that deliver at home, we know that they are at high risk of predisposing their infants to tetanus. So also in those mothers who apply feces on the umbilical cord, we know that there are a lot of myths that are there that it will help the umbilical cord to heal very fast. So there are others, those that apply feces on the umbilical cord. So those also predispose these infants to develop a tetanus. So let us understand the pathogenesis or the pathophysiology that occurs. Okay. So what happens is that tetanus occurs after the spores have been introduced into the tissue. So if we talk about these tissues, we know that we may look at the umbilical cord there. So we know that any tissue that is poorly oxygenated, it predisposes it becomes as a good site for the germination of tetanus. What happens is that if there is a tissue that is poorly oxygenated and the tetanus comes in contact, it becomes as a source of multiplication, and the toxin now does what? It produces from there and it starts growing. Okay? So what will happen is that once tetanospasmin has been produced, the vigilant or the basic vegetative cells that are present there, they will die, giving it more authority to control. So what will happen now is that this toxin now it can reach other body parts through the central nervous system, in particular through the peripheral motor nerves, or it may be through the blood-borne to the nervous tissues of the body. So once this, we understand that there has been a tissue that is poorly oxygenated. So as a result of that, the tetanus takes advantage of that part. So due to that advantage that it has taken now, it will start growing there. As it grows, it will produce what we call as now tetanospasmin. So as this tetanospasmin have been produced now, what will happen is that they will start now being transmitted, so they produce what we call as the spasm. And you know, when you talk about spasms, these are like electrical impulses that are happening in the body. So, and you know that they will be transmitted through the peripheral nerves. So once now they have been transmitted through the CNS, in particular through the peripheral nerves, what will happen is that these tetanospasmin now, they will bind to what we call as the ganglioside membranes of the nerve synapse. So what happens is that when the tetanospasmin has binded to the ganglioside, its work now is to do what? It will block the release of inhibitory transmitter from the nerve endings. As a result of that blockage, now what will happen is that there will be a result of generalized tonic spasticity, which means that the spasms now they have done what? They are being produced. Okay? So once the toxins have been fixed, they cannot be neutralized. It is important also now to know, for you to make a diagnosis, you should understand the clinical presentation of this infant or the neonate that will present with the tetanus. So one thing we should know is that tetanus can be localized, which means that it can only affect a certain part of the body, or it can be generalized, which means the whole lot of the body has been affected. So we should understand that once you come in contact with the tetanus, it has a duration of incubation period as early as in the ranges of 2 to 14 days, which means in 2 weeks' time, this person or this neonate is likely to manifest with the signs of tetanus. But also sometimes it may take about 2 to 50 days before it does what? It shows this manifestation. Okay? So however, despite the duration, so long as there's been a chance of an injury, we know that there is high risk of tetanus if the mother also did not get the injections during antenatal. So let us look at first the generalized tetanus. Okay, so we call it as a trismus or muscle spasm or local jaw presentation. So if we see sometimes the generalized tetanus, it can be a lockjaw or it can be a trismus. But mostly the lockjaw is in the presenting system. It's the 50% cases between the trismus and the lockjaw, they all present with the irritability, and this baby will be restless. Okay, also they will present with this stiffness of the neck and the spasm. So there is sometimes you find that when you come in contact with this baby, sometimes this is one of the early sign and symptom that would help you make, as a clinician, make a diagnosis to say this could be tetanus, regarding with the history that has been taken, whether the mother never had tetanus injection. So there is what we call as a sardonic smile of tetanus. If you look at this baby, the baby looks to be smiling. But this sardonic smile comes in as a result of interactable spasms. So these spasms, you know that since there's tetanus, if you go back to the pathogenesis of the pathophysiology, we know that they will start producing what? Spasms. So as a result of these spasms now, they will affect the facial and the buccal muscles. As a result, when they are affected, they contract or they will contract. As a result of this contraction, which means that once the baby they have this mouth, it cannot go back. The mouth will not go back to the normal state. It cannot control the closing and the opening of the mouth because there's a paralysis of these facial nerves that are involved. So let us continue with the generalized tetanus. We know that once there's these signs and symptoms, there's restlessness, there's the stomach smell that is there. It also, as time goes by, through the nerve endings that is spreading through, you find that it will go as far as the abdomen, the lumbar, the hip also, and to the thighs, which means the whole lot of the major parts of the human body, they have been affected. Okay, so as a result of this spread of the spasms due to the toxins that have been produced in the body and are being transmitted through the nerve endings, they have spread to the whole lot of the body. They will bring about what you call as obstinate posture. So if you have time, go on Google and you Google it. You look at the picture on how this patient will present with the obstinate posture. Okay, so this obstinate posture now comes in as a result of total contraction of of opposing muscles. We know that there are spasms that are occurring. These it's more like there will be repulsion of these electrical impulses in the body that are happening. So as a result of opposition that is happening, it will bring about contraction, which means this patient will present you with this obstinate posture. So we'll continue. Also, you find that since it's generalized, which means the majority or a lot of the body parts are being affected. So you find that the laryngeal and the respiratory muscle spasms, they will lead to asphyxiation. This asphyxia will come about as a result of the obstruction of the airway that has happened. So once it is spreading, we know that the laryngeal, there are muscles there. So once these muscles they tend to come in contact with the spasms that are happening, you'll find that they'll bring about a closure of the airway. So as a result of this, closing of the airway, it will bring about birth asphyxia. We will not really talk about birth asphyxia because we already know what it is and we've talked about it. Okay, so one thing that we should know is that tetanus does not affect the sensory nerves or the cortical functioning of the neonatal body. So, as a result, since we know that the cortical function has been reserved, we're talking about the spinal cord and the brain, which means all the time this patient will be conscious. Okay, and as a result of this the levels of consciousness that are in this neonate, they will be experiencing the pain that comes about with these spasms. And they always have the fear of the next spasm that they are going to have. Okay, so these seizures, they are characterized by severe tonic contractions of the muscles with teeth scratching and also flexion, abduction of the arms and the hyperextension of the legs. Okay, so sometimes you find that these spasms, when they come, they may last in a few seconds, but sometimes it may go with a lot of minutes that are happening. But despite this, without treatment, these seizures do what? They progress. Okay? And they reach a state whereby they become exhausting. So what happens is that once with these babies, they have been affected with the toxin of tetanus, what will happen is that any disturbance that may come with, if you introduce light towards them, this will become like a trigger to the spasm. So always these you avoid light. Sometimes also we avoid loud pitched sound because those become like a trigger to the spasm. So we always encourage, if we've made a diagnosis and we've known that this is tetanus, we ensure that these babies, they stay in an enclosed room where there's no noise and also where there's no bright light. So we know that there are these spasms that are occurring in this body. So as a result of this occurrence, sometimes we know that there's opposition of the muscles. We know that sometimes these babies will bring about, they present with dysuria and also urinary retention. And these all come as a result of the spasms that are occurring on the sphincter bladder. Sometimes you know that these spasms are always occurring. They may also bring about forced defecation in the neonates. Okay, So if there is progression of this illness as with the effects of the toxins, you find that this paralysis, since it's still generalized in the first week, it's more severe in the first week, but with treatment and interventions that come in, we expect this neonate to stabilize by the second week. And by the fourth week, we know that slowly all the paralysis or the spasms that are in this neonate have done what? Have subsided, or have slowly started what? Deteriorating. So if we check temperature, you find that mostly the temperature of these units is as high as 40 degrees Celsius. And this is due to metabolic reactions that are occurring as a result of the spasms. So we also have the autonomic effects that are occurring in this body. So you find that they also present with labral hypertension. Also they present with cutaneous vasoconstriction. They may also present with the arrhythmias and the tachycardia. Okay? So all these, they typically manifest within 3 to 12 days of birth. And they will progressively, as the toxin progresses to spread in the body, you find that this unit now will present with the poor sucking and the poor swallowing. So what will happen? You know that this infant is not feeding. This infant is unable to swallow. They will progress with the hunger and what? And crying. So also what will happen is that they will bring about now paralysis or diminished movement. Okay? There will be stiffness to touch and spasms with or without obstinance characteristics of the disease. And remember, if you look at the obstinacy statue, you will nicely appreciate it, and you will see how this infant will present. So we know that if we remember, we talked about the causative, the causes of tetanus. Sometimes you know that the umbilical cord may become the source of infection, or the source of where this tetanus grew from. So you may find that the umbilical stump where we clamp the umbilical cord is dirty, or it may be clotted with cow feces. Sometimes it may be clean. So you find that, remember that in my introduction to the clinical manifestation of tetanus, I said tetanus can be on two parts. It can be localized, which means it's on a particular part where the effect is. We say that maybe that was where there was an injury, or there is a sore there, and that is where the area becomes poorly oxygenated, and it becomes the source of growth for the toxin. We said it's localized, it can be generalized. We talked previously from talking about them generalized. We will now talk about the localized type of tetanus. So these spasms, the spasms now, when we talk about the localized tetanus, they will occur close to the adjacent muscles to the affected site, okay, or we may say the affected wound. And once the effect starts from there, what will happen is that it will start to proceed to what? To generalize the tetanus. It may start as a localized tetanus if not treated, since we know that through the nerve endings, it's being spread. So if it hasn't been treated in the early stages, you find that it will start to spread. As a result now, it may lead to generalized tetanus. So let us talk about cephalic tetanus. When you say cephalic tetanus, this is a localized tetanus of the head. Mostly the effect is on the bulbar musculature. Okay? So this will happen as a result of wounds or any other foreign bodies that may occur. It may be on the face, on the nostril, or the head. But at times also chronic otitis media becomes one of the predisposing factors to cephalic tetanus. So we know that once there is cephalic tetanus, these patients, the way they will present with trismus. Sometimes they present with what we call as right-side sardonychus and spastic paralysis of the tongue. And all the pharyngeal muscles now are affected. So you find that if you look at this patient, for you to make a diagnosis and say this is a localized, this is cephalic tetanus, you will find that if you look, the iris will be diverted, or there will be what you call as the gazed or diverted iris. For you to make a diagnosis, you can do the full blood count. Another full blood count that we are concentrating on is the white blood cell count. So we know that once there's an infection in the body, if you look at this hemogram, you've done a full blood count, you look at the hemogram, you find that there will be an elevation of the WBCs. The reason is simple. It's because there is a presence of infection in the body. So in most cases, if we do this, CSF spinal fluid, you find that there will be there's nothing much that is elicited from there apart from an increased pressure of CCF. Okay, so we can do also an EEG. When you do an EEG, most of the times you find that it's normal. So, because once you do an EEG, sometimes it's not possible that the tetan is not always visible on the gram staining. Okay, unless in 3/3 cases, this is where you find that you can make an isolation of tetan. So, as a result of this, if we do, what I meant on gram stain is when you do culture. When you do culture, you would find that in most of the cases, the toxins they are not cultured, unless only in third cases that's where you find them. So for us to really make a diagnosis of tetanus in these neonates, we should know the clinical manifestations on how these babies will present to you, because those are the ones that will give us more of a diagnosis of tetanus. Because from the investigations that we may do, there are little things that will do what we can find. So, let us also look at the differential diagnosis. When we talk about differential diagnosis, we're talking about other conditions that will present the same way as tetanus would. So, for you to really basically stick to your diagnosis, you have to really know how these other conditions they present about and find one thing that will differentiate them from tetanus. So if we look, the first differential that we talk about is trismus. We know that in trismus, what happens that on the parapharyngeal, they will find that on the parapharyngeal nerves there is a presence of an abscess. As a result of that abscess, the effect, you find that they will also present sometimes with the diverted iris. So it's important also to rule out parapharyngeal abscess. Sometimes in cases of rabies, you know that there will be hydrophobia. Also there will be dysphagia, which comes in as a result of chronic seizures. Another differential can be hypokalemia, which comes with the spasms. And these spasms in this one now, they come with the carpal, pedal, and laryngeal. But most of them, the trismus in this one now, is what the presentation of trismus is absent. But also trauma can be another differential. Important of all, meningitis can be a differential diagnosis. The main goal now that we have here is treatment. So the goal in treatment is to eradicate the Clostridium tetanus. So the first thing that we do is that if we identify the source of the C tetanus and the Clostridium tetanus, where it came from, it is important, if it's a wound, you clean and do wound debriding. Okay? So once we do wound debriding, we know that we are promoting healing of the wound, which means the multiplication of the Clostridium tetanus, it cannot do what? It cannot spread. In most of the cases in neonates, we know that the source of infection comes through the umbilicus. So what we do is we'll clean the umbilicus of this neonate. So the other thing what you do is we can administer human tetanus immunoglobulin. in the units of 500 to 600 units. Also, we'll give these infants antibiotics. So the first line of treatment, the drug of choice will give penicillin G. Okay, so we'll give 100,000 international units per kg for 14 days in 2 to 4 divided doses. We also give metronidazole. Okay, so if the patient is allergic to metronidazole or they show signs of allergy, you can also give erythromycin. So metronidazole will give 7.5 milligrams per dose, which means BD twice daily for 7 to 10 days. Also, we can give absorbed tetanus toxoid. But the absorbed tetanus toxoid now only becomes more active after 10 days. Another goal here what to do is that we know that there are spasms in these patients. They will present in form of like they are convulsing. So you ensure that you have to relax the muscles to bring about comfortability in this neonate. So you will give diazepam. So once you give diazepam, we know that this will bring about relaxation in the form of controlling the seizures. So we'll give 0.1 to 0.2 milligrams kg every 3 to 6 hours intravenously. Okay, but once we start this one, we'll start to what we call as tapering or titration. Okay, so we will titrate it as we control the spasms until we reach a sustainable period of duration of 2 to 6 weeks. Okay, before we do a final tapering off. If you say tapering off, what you mean is that we start reducing in the doses, if not doses, in the amount or in the period what you're giving. If we are giving BD, we change to OD. Also, we'll give chlorpromazine, and also we'll give magnesium sulfate. Okay, so dancoronium is another drug that is administered because it helps in the it's a neuromuscular blocking agent. Okay, so it also helps in the on the muscles. You know that it will bring about the blocking there on the synaptic joints where the spasms also are doing what they are starting from. Okay, so we can also do an endotracheal intubation. We may also do a close monitoring of vital signs, more especially the respiration rate and the pulse rate. We ensure that this baby remains nicely hydrated. We give enough hydration of fluids. Complications that may come about as a result of tetanus can be aspiration of secretions, and this will bring about aspiration pneumonia, because we know that we intubate this infant. Also, we may have hazards of mechanical ventilation. So as a result of this mechanical ventilation, we will have pneumothorax as another complication. So we know that there will be seizures which comes in as a result of the spasms. So there are high chances that there will be laceration of the mouth and the tongue, also bring about formation of hematomas, also lambdomylosis with myoglobinuria and renal failure. But above all, we also have fracture of the long bones of the body because of the seizures, the uncontrolled seizures, worsening out the generalized seizures. We may also have venous thrombosis, pulmonary embolisms, gastric ulceration that may come about. We may have iatrogenic apnea, and this comes in as a result of overdose of drugs. And maybe we know that we'll be giving diazepam here to help relaxation. So as a result of overdosing of maybe diazepam, it will bring about iatrogenic apnea and also cardiac arrhythmias. So the other complication that may come, which may be lifelong, we may talk about mental retardation and CP cerebral palsy. If we look at the prognosis, which is the success of treatment of tetanus, It occurs due to regeneration of the what? The synapses that have been affected within the spinal cord. And also, you find that as a result of good regeneration of these synapses in the synaptic joints there, it brings about restoration of what? The muscle relaxation. And tetanus becomes more fatal in very young neonates or infants and those that are very old, because we know that at that period sometimes the regeneration of the synaptic joints becomes very hard. Thank you so much for paying attention. We'll meet next time.